So as a writer and a filmmaker, a lot of my work revolves around creativity and how we can use stories to create change. And that's something that has come into my life both as a filmmaker and as a poet. And ironically, I sort of find a lot of poetry in filmmaking. So they sort of work together and talk to each other. But anytime we want to tackle a problem with creativity, the first thing usually is to identify what is the problem. What's the problem that we think we can challenge using the power of stories and storytelling? So as many people in this room have talked about earlier today, bullying is something that certainly when I was growing up and when I was in middle school, it was considered a rite of passage. People would say, oh, it's just kids being kids. It's just a normal part of growing up. For so long, it was something that was so ubiquitous, such a part of our culture, in our schools, in our communities, that it was practically invisible. That began to change in the spring of 2009. There were several cases where young people had taken their own lives, and finally, people were starting to put a connection between the fact that they had harmed themselves and they had been bullied for years in their schools. For the first time, people were saying, wait a minute, maybe this isn't normal. Maybe bullying is not something that is an acceptable part of our cultures in our schools and communities. Maybe there's a problem here. So that was the moment where Director Lee Hirsch and I teamed up and we decided to say, you know what, we have these tools. We're both filmmakers, we're storytellers. How can we use our tools to address this problem that we see? So we decided that we would spend 1 year in the life of bullying in America, and that we would take the opportunity to witness and to make visible what bullying looks like from kids, families, and educators who are on the front lines of either experiencing it every day, of working in schools and seeing it, of not knowing what to do when you witness it, families who had been affected by it in many, many different ways, and young people who had been deeply affected by it. And we thought that if we can show what bullying looks like, maybe we can challenge this idea that it's a normal part of growing up. Maybe if we can make this thing visible, that was all around us and yet in this way was invisible and often overlooked, maybe we could show different possibilities for our lives. So we set out, we met dozens of families, and what ended up happening was that we had 5 stories of kids and families who were in the film. One person who we met really early on was Kelby, and Kelby had come out as gay in their town in Oklahoma and had been brutally bullied, brutally ostracized in school, in the faith community. The entire family was targeted. And Kelby's parents said, you know what, look, we can leave. We don't have to stay here. You don't have to take on this entire town. And Kelby said, what happens if I leave to the next person who comes up after me? I want to make a path for that person who may not have the support of their family, who may not have a few friends who they can lean on. So we witnessed Kelby's year staying in the town and challenging the bullying and ignorance that they were facing. David and Tina Long, we met in the fall of the school year, and we met them shortly after their son Tyler had taken his own life. Tyler had been bullied since kindergarten. The family had gone to the school numerous times over the years and were unable to get any kind of intervention. And shortly after Tyler's death, they decided to bring their community together, and they held a town hall meeting, and they said, you know, if we're dealing with this so intimately with our family, there must be other people in our town and community who are also going through this. And so we watched as they brought together their town and really illuminated what was happening, not just to their family, but many other families in their community in Georgia. Jemiah was in the situation a lot of us have been in, where she had transferred to her school in September, to a new school, and she was the new girl. And having had that experience myself, I'm sure many people in this room have had that experience. Being the new girl is really tough. And she had a really long bus ride, 45 minutes each way. And on that bus, she was picked on. And she decided that she would scare off the kids who were picking on her. And she went into her mom's closet. She found her mom's gun, and she brought it on the school bus. Fortunately, she was tackled by another student before anyone was hurt, but she was facing very serious charges. And it was only after she had taken this action that people started to say, well, wait a minute. People, mainly us filmmakers, the story in the news was very different, but as filmmakers and people who were looking at this, at what was happening with young people in schools, we said, well, there's got to be something going on here. And as it turned out, in fact, Jemiah had been being picked on that bus and was hoping to scare off those people who had been tormenting her. So we spent that year with her as her family waited to find out if she would be tried as an adult and potentially face many, many years in prison, or if she would be kept in a juvenile facility and have some other form of punishment. Kirk and Laura Smalley, we also met shortly after their own son had taken his life. And something that happened almost immediately with them is that they created this organization, Stand for the Silent, and it became enormous. They traveled all over the world. They traveled to schools. They traveled to communities across the United States, internationally, and they spoke out against bullying, and they told their own story. And they hoped that through telling their own story, they would prevent other parents and families from going through the kind of pain that they were experiencing. Alex, for those of you who have seen the film, know that we spent a lot of time with Alex. And Alex was a 7th grader in Sioux City, Iowa. And it was really through Alex that we got to see, I think most intimately, the ways in which bullying has an impact not only on your life at school, on the school bus, but how hard it is for families to deal with it, for parents to deal with it, for parents to know what to do, for educators to know what to do when they don't have the tools or resources. And it was also through Alex and Alex's courage that we were able to show what bullying looks like. Alex had been bullied on his school bus every day. I mean, we rode the bus with him starting on the first day of school, and on the first day of school, he got punched on that bus. And the violence on the bus only continued to escalate over the course of the year. And so we knew after this year that we could show how immensely families and communities were being affected by this. We were also able to show how many people's lives, each and every person who participated in the film and who partnered with us in making this film, everyone was transformed by their experiences with bullying to being people who were voices for change. So we finished the film, and we were really excited to get it out there. And the next part in this, sort of mission we were on to see if we can affect change with these stories is to get people to see the film, right? We've now made bullying visible. We want people to be able to see it. There was a problem. We were shocked when Bully was given an R rating from the Motion Picture Association of America. Why was that a problem? It was a problem because we mainly wanted young people who were going through these kinds of experiences to see the film. And so the film had an R rating. It was a really big problem. It got an R rating for several uses of the F word, mainly which was being used by young people who were like under 13. And those words are in the film because it's really a part of the picture of bullying. It's a part of what bullying sounds like. So another person who was shocked by the fact that Bully was given an R rating was a high school student named Katie Butler. And Katie Butler created a petition to ask the MPAA to lower the rating of Bully from from R to PG-13. And she got over 200,000 signatures and succeeded. The MPAA eventually gave the film a PG-13 rating, and it came out, and we were able to share it with as broad audiences as we wanted to. The thing that was interesting about the people who were signing these signatures, a lot of them were young people. And a lot of those young people were saying, these are our stories. This is what our experiences are looking like. And we want these experiences to be seen. We want our voices to be heard. We want people to know what's going on in our schools, on our school buses, at the bus stop, so that maybe we can do something about it. So we also were hoping that if we could get enough of a groundswell, that we could really do something about this. And so we created something called the Bully Project. And it was a partnership with a lot of different organizations, brands. Justin Bieber, I think, did a song for it. We had educators, young people, just like sort of anyone who we could find who wanted to be on like the Bully Project, Prevent Bullying bus. We were like, get on the bus, we can all do our part, and we can all contribute to this in different ways. So one of the things that we did was part of the campaign was 1 million kids to see Bully. And when we originally proposed this, people were like, oh, you're crazy, you're never going to get 1 million kids to see Bully. We created this thing where free of cost, kids could see the film in theaters with their educators and go back to class and then have a really meaningful work around bullying, around what they had seen, and around how it connected to their own experiences in schools. So even though originally we were told, whoops, we were crazy for wanting to have 1 million kids, we reached over 3.8 million kids. As was mentioned in the introduction, we also took Bully to the White House, because something else that was really important to us was that we affect change through policy, and that we find a way to really reach leaders in our towns, in our schools. Something that we've learned from being in a school environment is that so much of the leadership sets the tone, and that when you have a leadership that really values compassion, empathy, kindness, that those are values that really get into the whole community. And so we knew we wanted policymakers and leadership in this country to really take this issue seriously. So we had a screening at the White House, and as you can see, a lot of people from the film came, and it was really fun. Valerie Jarrett announced at that screening President Obama's support of the Safe Schools Improvement Act, which would provide protections for LGBT students from bullying. So we had a lot of kind of different approaches that we took to bullying, and a lot of different approaches that we took to making it visible. So some of the things that we did, it played in cities all over the world, all over the United States. We had tons and tons of community screenings where we brought out leaders in the community, educators in the community, parents, kids, and would have public screenings and then have opportunities for all of these people to talk to each other and say, look, here's what's going on in our town, and this is what we need to do about it. Again, we had 3.8 million kids who were reached through the Million Kids to See Bully, and we also created an educator's viewing guide, which has been downloaded thousands and thousands of times. One of the great successes when we're I feel like we kind of were able to implement our plan, which was to get lots of people to see the film. And then it was a question of, all right, this original thing that bullying was a normal rite of passage, that bullying was something that we were just supposed to get through in our schools, get through in our adolescence. Did that change? So I think that it changed in a few different ways. One is that right now, every single state in this country either has bullying laws, bullying policies, or bullying laws and policies. No longer is bullying something that isn't talked about. And South Park kind of gently lampooned the film, which we thought was like a good thing. You know, it's like getting out there. Even South Park is like thinking and talking about bullying. So we took that as like a thank you. Alex himself, who you saw a few slides back, who was in the film, and who was so invisible for so long in his school. The administrators would not give him help. It took a long time for him to even get his parents to see what he was going through. Alex was somebody who had really been written off in a lot of ways by his school. Alex has since become an outspoken advocate on bullying, on his experiences, on bullying prevention. He's somebody who's out there speaking out against peer abuse and really sharing his own experiences, and that has become a way in which his voice has been amplified in a way that I think when we met him that first day of 7th grade, when he was sitting on this bench outside of his school, kind of looking like he just wanted to be invisible. He just wanted to fly under the radar for as long as possible so that he wouldn't bring attention to himself and thereby bring bullying upon himself. This is a totally different Alex. And this Alex is also being met with a kind of support. People are like cheering him that I think was really hard to imagine also on that first day of 7th grade when we met him. And finally, in thinking about bullying having maybe gone from something that's not just totally normal, but to something that we all know to recognize and call out, last year the word upstander was added to the dictionary, thanks to a petition from some students in New Jersey. And I think, again, this speaks to something that when we set out to make the film, we hoped that we could find ways to show new possibilities. The fact that upstander is now part of our dictionary, part of our language, I think shows that there are other possibilities, and a lot of people are embracing that. Something that people said to me over and over and over again when I started this film was, why are you making a film about bullying? There will always be bullying. What's the point? You're never going to change it. You're never going to be able to do anything about this. It's human nature. The human nature thing is something that people said to me all the time. I think if there's one thing that I learned in the process of making this film, is that when it comes to bullying, it's about the choices that we make every day when we get out of bed. And every day we have the opportunity to make a choice, to treat others with kindness, compassion, to respectfully disagree, to have meaningful discourse, or we can treat people with cruelty. We all have the opportunity to be upstanders. Thank you.